Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Eric Johnston. I am the senior Kansai correspondent for the Japan Times. It is an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to be here today to serve as your MC for this press conference titled The Rocky Road to Osaka, Civil Society's Views of the G20 Summit. We have with us today a number of people from the NGO, NPO, civil society community in Japan and abroad. And our three speakers are heading the organization known as C20, which stands for Civil Society 20. From this Sunday to the following Tuesday, they will be holding a meeting here in Tokyo. They have just come from a meeting with Prime Minister Abe, where they presented their policy pack and their recommendations for the G20 process and what they hope to talk about. And there is indeed quite a bit to discuss this year. As I think those of you who are following what's going on know, there are issues ranging from big data and the possible management of the so-called GAFA group, Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon. There are issues involved with transparency, especially for infrastructure projects in Africa. Health is an issue, plastic ocean waste, and of course the environment. But one of the big issues for civil society is what they're calling the shrinking of civil society space. With crackdowns and sometimes violent crackdowns on civil society groups worldwide, there are worries about what might happen in Osaka. The local Osaka and Kansai media are focusing on the prevention of terrorism. And it's important to realize that Japan has never held a G20 summit before, and that concerns about terrorism in a city like Osaka, which is not used to holding these big events, is great. And what does that mean for civil society and their efforts to get their message out? So in addition, Africa will be talked about this year at the G20 summit. The summit takes place just about 2 months before the TCAD summit on African development takes place in Yokohama at the end of August. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's going to draw about 4,500 leaders, mostly from African nations, but also from Japan, to talk about issues. So there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on, and here to give their views on what civil society is thinking and doing. We have three speakers. Let me just introduce them real quick. First is Ms. Yuka Iwatsuki, who is the C20 chair and president of Action Against Child Exploitation. And then to my immediate right is Ms. Atsuko Miwa, C20 chair and Asia Pacific Human Rights Information Center director. That's HURIGHTS Osaka. And finally, the gentleman at my far right is Masaki Inaba, who is the C20 Sherpa, as well as the Japan Civil Society Network on NGOs. Today, we will be doing live streaming, and the conference will be about an hour. Each speaker will have 10 minutes. They'll be speaking in English, and then we'll follow it up with a Q&A and possibly some comments from other NGO representatives who are here. But let me begin by first turning the floor over to Ms. Yuka Iwatsuki. Iwatsuki-san.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you everyone for being here today. We are really honored to have this opportunity in FCCJ. So as Eric-san mentioned, we are from C20, and C20 consists of various NGOs from around the globe. So I'd like to invite the ones who are the member of C20 to briefly introduce your names and affiliation. So Natasha, maybe you can start.
Hi, everybody. My name is Valeria Milanes. I'm the Executive Director of Association for Civil Rights, which is an NGO based in Buenos Aires. Argentina last year has the presidency of the G20, and the organization I belong was part of the steering committee, and there are more colleagues from Argentina also here.
You can introduce yourselves.
Osama Al-Halaki. I come from the King Khalid Foundation in Saudi Arabia as well.
Rahaf Al-Sanusi from the King Khalid Foundation as well.
Hello, everyone. I am Martin Sunke from Cameroon, member of the Civil 20 Steering Committee. My organization is Africa Development Interchange Network, which is one of the African networks that is part of the African Working Group on Sustainable Development. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kurt Frieder. I'm the president of Fundación Huésped from Argentina, which is an organization that works on sexual and reproductive rights, access to health and things like that, discrimination. And besides that, last year I was the national coordinator for the Global Health Group for the C20 in Argentina, and this year I'm the international co-coordinator together with Masaki Inaba.
Hi, my name is Maria Emilia. I am Transparency International Global Advocacy Coordinator. This year, Transparency International is steering committee member of the
I'm
C20.
sorry, could you speed up the introductions, please? We really only have a limited amount of time.
Yes,
so just,
sure.
Yeah, thank you.
And we are also chairing the anti-corruption working group.
And Hideki, lastly.
Okay. My name is Hideki Wakabayashi. I'm director of the JANIC, Japan International Japan NGO Center for International Cooperation. We are kind of NGO to organize, one of the two organizers to hold the C20. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So as you can see, we are very diverse, and we also utilize the system of Troika system. So that's why we have colleagues from Saudi Arabia, which will be hosting the G20 next year, and from Argentina, which hosted it last year. So for my part, I'd like to introduce what I have said to Prime Minister in his meeting, and also I'd like to share his reactions. And for your reference, we have just printed this policy pack this morning, actually, and we have submitted this to the Prime Minister. And this is embargo until Sunday, but we have it as today, so we will distribute it so that we know you all know what our policy recommendations are. And if you take a look, you can see it's really diverse. So I just will introduce what I have said to Mr. Prime Minister this morning. I mentioned that I think that there are many anxieties in this world right now because of the climate change is accelerating, and poverty we have never been able to eradicate, and also there are so many wars happening in the world, and also the women and children suffering from those. And for the innovation in digital economy, there are so much expectations to the possibility of them, but at the same time, we have to face the possibility that this will just widen the gap that already exists. There are so many people who might not merit from these innovations. Also, we hope for gender equality and social inclusion, but it is far beyond what has been expected to be advanced. And also, infrastructure, international financial architecture, there are so many issues to be resolved. And decent work and business and human rights has been focused because of the many issues that's been raised in supply chains, etc. And also, the trade and investment has been facing a lot of challenges. So this policy pack is the set of the recommendation, very concrete recommendation in line with G20 agenda to advance the discussions that will be taking place in G20 processes. We are C20, and we have been engaged in the process as well. So Emilia there, she was there in the anti-corruption working group meeting. I was also invited to employment working group meeting, etc. So we've been engaged in the G20 process, and sometimes they take us seriously to incorporate our ideas into the real recommendation from the working groups. So I think we are playing a very important role to make the discussions fruitful in G20. Also, I'd like to mention our key message. Our key message is that G20 should take actions. and making concrete actions that has been already based on the commitments that has been already made. What we think is G20 is repeated every year. Every year new commitments will be made, but we don't see the enough and same amount of implementations. I think that is the biggest challenge that we are facing, and we are the ones who are watching if it's implemented or not, and saying how it should be implemented. So I think we see that C20 is playing a vital role in advancing and making governments facing more seriously to the commitments that has been made. And lastly, we are facing in a very unique situation right now because of the several political issues as well as the trade issues. I feel that the world is more divided than ever. And we are hoping that G20 countries and Japan will lead the discussion that will unite the world again, and also to overcome the issues that has been dividing the countries and societies. So I'm wishing that the Japan will have the courageous leadership to overcome that divide that has been existing for a while. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect timing, too. Thank you so much.
Really?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, our next speaker, Ms. Miwa.
Thank you very much. So first of all, we are very honored to have this kind of opportunity to speak at the FCCJ. And thank you very much, Eric-san, for providing us such an important and invaluable opportunity. So you might have received our policy pack, which is now out of print. And the thrust of C20 is clearly set out in the communique, which reads, the fundamental transformation is needed to make the world more equal, democratic, peaceful, and sustainable. Thus, equality, democracy, peace, and sustainability are visions that we embrace in C20. In order to go forward, 2030 Agenda, or SDGs, are our guiding principle. And SDGs, as we all understand, we only have 10 years ahead of us. And it is very clear that 10 years is not enough to make SDGs to achieve their own goals. So I spoke to Prime Minister Abe 3 key messages out of the communique, and the important one was addressed by Yuka, which is turning promises into action. That's very important because as we can see, G20 has issued a lot of statements or declaration or plan of action, and they are good in themselves. But the thing is that they are not translated into concrete actions. So if we get, or the G20 get serious enough to realize all those commitments issued by them, the world must look different. So we ask Prime Minister Abe to take a strong leadership role to move those issues forward, to achieve the SDGs. And the second thing is that in this globally interlinked world, the issues are also globally shared and interlinked. So it's difficult for only the government to solve the issues. And that is the main reason why there are 7 different engagement groups, including C20. So it's very clear that the serious issues here and now in the present world cannot be solved only by the government, but all the stakeholders should come together for the solutions, and the solutions would be also globally shared, so that the globally shared problems can be solved. So I talked with, I told Ms. Prime Minister Abe that we are here, C20 is here as an important stakeholder to solve the globally shared issues together. So please make use of our expertise and professional skills that we nurtured through our work with grassroots people in often cases. The G20 would have better chances to make this world a better place for all of us. For all of us, which means that we have to solve the big gap or the bigger gap that we have in front of us. And that is one of the most important issues that we ask the G20 to tackle with. The widening gap between the rich and poor is one of the most important issues that we have in this world. Many of those, especially those who live in developing world or global south, the future does not look promising in terms of making development work for those who are often most marginalized. So we list the group of people who are marginalized, and including the LGBTQI, disabled, indigenous peoples, ethnic, linguistic, and religious minorities, refugees, IDPs, immigrants, and the aged. And in this year's communique, we also included the word, the descent-based communities. Descent-based communities are one of the most marginalized groups in Japan, who are called Blackmin, and that include the caste-based communities like we have in South Asia. So I think C20 should be really serious about making efforts so that no one is left behind. Do we still have time?
Another minute, yes, go ahead.
Okay. And lastly, shrinking civic space really poses a serious danger to the people in the world. To leave no one behind, the society should be democratic, participatory, or transparent. But what's happening, especially in the recent years in the globe, is that the civic space has been shrinking and shrinking, and especially the human rights defenders are really having hard time. Not only extrajudicial kind of disappearance, but then many of them are feared to have been killed. So shrinking space for civic space really weakens the world and the civic, not only the democracy, but the entire world in terms of their, how can I say, in terms of their work with the most marginalized people who often are neglected or who often are denied their political voice to be heard in each country. So that is one of the most important things that we like to address in the C20, especially on the first day, which is called the Tokyo Democracy Forum. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And now Mr. Inaba.
Thank you very much for participating in this press conference, and also thank you very much for giving us the time to explain about the G-20 summit and on Saturday, from Sunday to Tuesday. I will explain something about the structure of the G-20 first. And also after that, I will introduce some important issues in this G-20 policy perk after that. And finally, and if I have time, I will explain something about the TICAD. So maybe it will be enough and for me to 10 for 10 minutes. Firstly, I will explain something about the G-20 summit from Sunday to Tuesday, and probably you can get information also from the website. We have the English website, civil-20.org, so that you can get sufficient information from the English. And also, if you are okay to read Japanese, and you can find the sufficient information on the G-20 summit from the www.civil-20.jp. So you can get sufficient information on the G-20 summit, and also you can also apply to participate in the G-20 summit as journalists. So that please see these two websites, and if you would like to participate as a journalist, please register through the website. So thank you very much. And I will explain the structure of the G-20. So there is 3 days. First day is Tokyo Democracy Forum, and it is focusing mainly on the SDGs Goal 16. It is about the governance, democracy, transparency, accountability, and also participatory measures for the policy implementation. So, these kind of issues are very important in this country and in this world. And also, as our chair said, and also that our both co-chair said that the shrinking civic space is a very severe problem. So that this issue is the most focus in the first day, and also there will be many kinds of civil rights activists from Asia Pacific region, and also Latin American region, and also Africa region. So probably you can meet with these kind of prominent advocates working on the human rights issues, and also the civil rights issues, who are working very hard on this civic shrinking civic space issues. And also there are several kind of the breakout sessions related to this democracy, accountability, anti-corruption issues, so that probably you can get more information about these kind of issues. So probably first day is very important, and if you have more interest on these kind of rights issues, and also the governance issues, accountability issues, please come to the first day. And second day, and it is held in the Sacred Heart Global Plaza, and it is near from the Hiro station of the Tokyo subway. So that the first day, the place is different. So please take care about it. And second day and third day, and the G-20 summit will be held in Toranomon Hills Forum. And it is not so far from here. And you know the very tall building, new tall building, Toranomon Hills, and you can find the venue very easily. It is a 5th floor, and there will be more than 400 participants will be there. So that how to say, we are very much pleased to see this turnout. So many Japanese and also that overseas advocates working on the human rights issues and also development issues, environmental issues and economy issues, and they will join together for the C20. So that we are very much pleased to see these results of the turnout. So the second day, we are focusing on there are two important sessions. One is a special session, inviting the high-level person of the Japanese government. Unfortunately, Prime Minister Abe cannot come because that he has his other schedule to go out of this country. So that substitutely, we had a face-to-face meeting with the Prime Minister Abe today. So passed this policy pack to him. So we are continuing our negotiation with the government and to invite the kind of second highest, third highest, and these kind of people and this kind of person representing the Japanese government as a hosting country of the G20. So that I believe that significant persons will represent the Japanese government and in the special session. And also, there is the high-level session. We are inviting the Sherpa team of the Japanese government, who is responsible for the substances of the G20. So that we will have the high-level session, and the deputy the sous Sherpa, Mr. Tsukada, will come to the high-level session, and we will discuss about the many issues of the Sherpa track. So this second day, we are focusing on how to make the G20 leave no one behind, and also how to make our civil society policy to mainstream the G20 and these G20 decisions. And the third day, the venue is also the Toranomon Hills Forum, and we are focusing more on the economic issues and also the continuity of the C20. So we will invite the financial track team of the Ministry of Finance and to the high-level session on the financial track in the third day, and Mr. Takashi Miyahara, who is the Deputy Director General of the International Bureau of Ministry of Finance, who is the number 3 of the Sherpa track, financial track, will come, and we have the dialogues with the financial track issues. And we really know that G20 issues is very much the economic justice issues. So that we will discuss with the G20 financial track people about how to pursue the economic justice and through the G20 advocacy. And also about the C20 continuity. And C20 was started in 2013 in the G20 summit in Russia. And President Putin had a meeting with several numbers of the international NGOs in 2013. And after that, each year, C20 summit has been held. And in most of the cases, the Prime Minister, President, and also President is invited and participated in the G20, C20. So that, for example, in 2014, the Prime Minister Abbott of Australia participated. And also in the 2015, the Vice Prime Minister Yilmaz of Turkey participated. And also in the 2016 and 2016, Mr. Yang Jiechi, who is the number 3 and number 4 of the Chinese government, participated. And also in the Germany G20, the Chancellor Merkel participated. And also, finally, last year, the President Mauricio Macri of Argentina participated in C20. So that this C20 has been held in very much high level participation from the hosting country government. And at this time, we had a direct face-to-face meeting with the Prime Minister Abe this morning. So that this kind of high level participation was secured in this year. So that next year, Saudi Arabia will host the C20, so that we all civil society expect that such kind of similar high-level participation in the Saudi Arabia will be achieved, I believe. And also in 2021, Italy, and 2022, India. And so this kind of C20 summit should be continued as a kind of tradition of the participatory democracy and accountability of the C20. So that G20. So that we believe that C20 should be continued after Japan, Saudi Arabia, Italy, and India. So that we will have a discussion about how to continue this tradition of the G20 on the participatory democracy and accountability as a tradition of the G20. So this is the third day of the program. So anyway, we, Japanese civil society, has been this year leading the process of C20, and we have already got a huge kind of the mobilization of the Japanese and the global mobilization of the civil society activities, and we would like to continue the whole process of the G20 and as a kind of to achieve the wider civil society participation, mobilization, and also that to broaden the accountability and transparency of the G20, whole G20 process. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So, and thanks to all three of our speakers. I'm going to throw the floor open to questions in just a moment, but I would like to use my prerogative as MC today to ask just a couple of two questions, one short and one a bit longer. This is to any of the three speakers who wishes to answer it. You're meeting with the Prime Minister. What did he say? That's the first question.
Okay, so let me introduce what he said. In reaction to my speech, he said Japan will be hosting G20 for the first time. We are going to address the global issues such as free trade, economic growth from innovation, and the global issues. And because I mentioned about the concerns of the people who would be left behind from the digital economy, in response he said, I am aware that in fourth industry revolution, together with the global economy, might widen the gap we already have, and there are anxiety about it, and there are some people pointing out that it already have been widening the gap. So that's why he intends to lead the discussion for the free trade and inclusive growth on the principle of harmony that Japan cherishes. While each G20 country has different point of view, he will try to find a common ground. That's
okay. And my second question is just, it's a bit more longer and complex, so bear with me. But there's a lot of things that are being talked about at G20 this year, as mentioned. But when you were speaking to the Prime Minister, or when you were speaking to Japanese government officials today or previously, did they give you an idea of which items on the agenda are likely to be top of the priority list in Osaka? Because I think it's no secret that the G20 process has a lot of problems, and it contains many different nations with many different political systems, with many different agendas. But of all of the different things that have been brought up today and in the past, did they give you a sense of these are our top three or our top five issues we definitely want to bring up in Osaka? To whoever wants to answer that question.
I I think as long as maybe people don't know, so I'll just explain. But there are the two tracks on the G20. One is the Sherpa track, and one is financial track. For the Sherpa track, the agenda is not so clear, while for the financial track, agenda is very clear because it's been provided by the finance minister and it's on the website. So in that finance track, we are sure that Japanese government will take the issue of the quality infrastructure as well as debt sustainability. These are the ones that's being mentioned that they are going to discuss, and it's already actually in the agenda. So I'm sure that Japan will propose a set of the standards how the quality infrastructure should be defined in G20. Anything to add? And also universal health coverage, one of the issue for the finance track as well as the Sherpa track, no?
Yeah, yes. From my observation, firstly, as you mentioned in the document for the press conference, the Prime Minister Abe very much emphasized the importance of the data governance in the Davos meeting in January. And he said that they will start the Osaka track and to discuss about the data governance, and also that it should be parallelly will be did in the through the WTO reform. So I think that this is a very important point, and they would like to put the first. They would like to put this issue as a flagship issues flagship issues related to the science and technology innovation and the digitalization. So I think that, and also that all of the discussions on the G20 agenda is that very much aligned with this STI, and also that the digitalization, and also that the so-called sustainable growth or something. So that this digitalization and also data and the science and technology issues will be focused the most, I think. This is probably this is the first one. And also, second one is that energy transition. Energy transition, it is very much interesting that I discussed with the energy agency. And the energy agency says that they would like to link the climate change and the energy transition. It is very much, unique opinion. So that they would like to do the energy transition for energy transition. It is very interesting. And also that the innovation. Their purpose of the energy transition is innovation, not climate change. It is very interesting point of view. And also they would like to make by this energy transition the economic growth. And so this is we are very much somewhat impressed by them. So this is the second one. And the third one is the universal health coverage, health issues. Probably you know that in the first day of the Leaders Summit in the June 28th, and there will be the G20 Health Minister, Financial Minister meeting. It is the first meeting of the Financial Minister and the Health Minister meeting, to discuss about the universal health coverage financing in developing countries. So they would like to push this universal health coverage issues in the development issues, the whole development issues in the G20, so that they would like to push on the universal health coverage and also other health issues like aging and health, and also the health crisis management capacity. So I think that these three issues are there. One is the digitalization. Second one is the energy transition and the climate change. And the third one is the health issues.
Okay, thank you.
So all of the issues which will be covered addressed by two of my colleagues. So let me address what is not really included in the agenda of the G20. And one of them would be gender issues, actually. I think this year's G20 initiatives is not so strong about gender mainstreaming kind of initiatives, which I feel very concerned or, yes. Like last year's G20 in Buenos Aires, it was much clearer than this year's focuses. And I wish that the working group on gender should have been set up in the G20 process itself, but it's not. And if it's not, I think the gender issue should be mainstreamed in all the discussions and agendas of the G20. But we are sorry to say it's not so strong. So in this policy pack, we tried very hard to include gender issues in all the 10 or 9 working groups. In addition to gender, gender has its own working group, but there are 9 other working groups, and we tried hard to mainstream gender issues in all the 9 groups. Because apparently it's very, very important. Like if you read the policies from the anti-corruption working group of the C20, sextortion or gender issues and corruption is one of the most important issues there. And actually, we are not, sextortion is also the issues for Japan. As we can recall what happened last years with regard to the sexual harassment reportedly undertaken by the administrative vice minister of the Ministry of Finance. So, of course, that's an human rights issues and sexual harassment from the gender-based nature, but it's now treated as anti-corruption aspect. And that kind of thrust is not so strong in the G20's process itself. So that's one thing I feel a little bit concerned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, now we'll throw the floor up into questions. FCCJ policy is that if there are any working press here, journalists, either journalist members or from non-member journalist organizations, you can raise your hand and ask a question. Anybody from the working press would like to ask a question? Okay, then I will throw it open to anybody who has a question. If you have a question, please come up here to the microphone. Give us your name and affiliation. No questions. We answered all of your questions, apparently. Okay, well, while you're thinking about that, I'll just throw one more question, and this is actually about African development aid. And I know that there's been a lot of talk about transparency in African infrastructure projects, and that there's been certainly a lot of interest in the Japanese government because of the TCAD conference. But at the G20, which will be really the big opportunity for world leaders before the TCAD summit to get together and to discuss Africa issues, what do you think will come out of the Osaka G20 summit with regards to Africa?
Yeah, probably I should answer this question. Yeah. As far as I know, not so many focus on the African issues in the G20 Osaka summit. How to say it? One is the universal health coverage issues and the health issues. How to say related to the TCAD. How to say? So, firstly, we have to say that G20 doesn't have the sufficient participation from Africa. Maybe Martin can speak something. So that currently, in the 19 countries of Africa, there are only one country from 90 countries of the world for the G20. Only one country participate in the G20 sustainably. And one is South Africa, the Republic of South Africa. And also, of course, there is a participation from the African Union, the chair of the African Union. But it is unstable because every year, the African Union chair is different person. So this time, Egypt, the president of Egypt will participate. And also, the chair of the NEPAD, a new partnership of Africa development, will participate. But it is also, it is not sustainable because it is also changing. So that this time, the president of Senegal will participate. So, but anyway, the Africa has not unproportionately undermined. I'm not sure about English, but anyway, so Africa has not yet represented in G20. So that we have to say that G20 should be more reformed and to proportionately represent African continent. So this is one issue, and health issues in Africa will be discussed. Especially one is the universal health coverage, and also other issues that current outbreak of the Ebola viral disease in the northeast Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo. So probably these two issues will be focused on health issues. And also about infrastructure, of course, they will be discussed. And also Japan has been pushing the quality infra issues. And of course that there are some kind of very difficult problems from the infrastructure and debt and also anti-corruption issues. So that there will be some discussions. But anyway, Japan also have the problems on their projects of the infrastructure. So that probably it is very much political and thing. So anyway, probably Martin has some additional comments, but please make it briefly. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, could you please come up here to the microphone? We're live recording this, so it would be helpful. And could you just please introduce yourself again and where you're from?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I am Martin Sunke from Africa Development Interchange Network. I think my colleague just gave you some insight on what could come out, which has to do with the TCAT. But what I would say is four things. Four things are at the core of the TCAT, and I may think that Japan will push those four things forward. One is security issues, and the other one is the treatment of the debt issues, which is also related to the third one, which has to do with infrastructure. And you have the issue of collaboration between the private sector and governments, which has to do with how you finance the infrastructure. So as Japan has quality infrastructure as their main priority, we would believe that Japan may put that on the table to be discussed with their peers, because the issue of Africa being reformed, I mean, Africa getting into reform to facilitate private sector investment is something which comes right back from the German presidency of the G20, which Argentina continued, and we may think that Japan would bring this on the table with the idea of getting it into quality infrastructure. Thank you.
So those four things. Okay, thank you. Right. Did anybody else have any questions? No. Okay, then any final comments from our three speakers? Anything else that they want to add as a last comment? I'll give them the last word instead of me.
Yeah, maybe I think that probably it would be good when precious opportunity to give the give the floor to the representative of Saudi Arabia and the next country. So maybe very briefly, I believe.
Okay, we have about 10 minutes left. So yes, if the representatives want to come up again to the microphone, please state your name, affiliation, and just a couple of brief remarks would be appreciated.
My name is Natasha Matic, and I'm representing King Khalid Foundation, Saudi Arabia, and we're very excited to be part of the C20 community. We've been engaged with C20 since Germany and have attended and participated and contributed to C20 Argentina, and have been actually part of the steering committee in the Japan C20 and have contributed quite a lot to different working groups. As you know, there have been 10 different working groups in Japan, and we've contributed content to probably 3 or 4 different ones, starting from local to global issues, some of the gender issues that you mentioned. We also contributed to the issue of shrinking space, civic society space globally, and also to some of the finance issues that are related to the nonprofits, as well as infrastructure. So we look forward to hosting everyone. All of you are invited to Saudi Arabia, and we look forward to continuing all the issues and discussions that have been covered in Germany and Argentina and now Japan. And we hope we will push them even more forward during our C20 in Saudi Arabia. And also make a point of what you raised, taking action rather than just bringing up more and more issues. So we need to solve certain issues in order to be able to move forward. We have full support of the Saudi government to do this. They're very enthusiastic. They're very welcoming to all the civil society organizations, and we hope to have a very good exchange and dialogue and hopefully some progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there one other person? Oh, okay. All right then. Well, if there's nothing else, then I'll wrap it up here. I want to thank our speakers. Please give them a round of applause. Thanks.
Thank you.
And again, thank everybody for coming. The FCCJ press conference, this press conference will be available on YouTube sometime tomorrow. Yes, Iwatsuki-san, one last thing?
Yes, do we have some, I think Miwa-san wants to say a few words.
I'm sorry? Yeah, well, that's fine. We still have 6 minutes left, so go ahead. 2 minutes each.
2 minutes each. Okay. This is my first time to be engaged in C20 G20 process, and I didn't know that whole G20 process is very complicated as well as really vigorous process. So each G20 working groups meeting 3 to 4 times a year, each time for 3 days to discuss. So government officials are taking a lot of time to making this G20 process. So based on that, I think they have so many inputs, then we expect outputs as well as outcomes of the G20. And I remember the word measure what we treasure. That was the word from the business person that I admire. But I really think that G20 should reflect on the commitments that they have already made to measure the progress they have done. And we also think that because of this time that we are now in place, I think G20s are tested to be able to have a power to unite the dividends more, or just leave it as it is. So I think there are a lot of expectations, and I hope that Japan again will have a courage to take more proactive actions rather than just following what the other presidency have done to make more progress based on not on just the commitment base, but on the action base.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much for this precious opportunity, and I like to I'd like to mention 3 key messages that I've been saying to the people who are involved in the C20. So the first is that let's make the C20 a feminist C20. And the feminists are not scary. And I've been saying, especially to those Japanese people who are very afraid, scared of feminism. And feminists here is all of those who say no to any inequality or unfair treatment or discrimination based on sex or based on gender. So it of course entails men and women, but it includes those who are not who cannot be fit into the binary division of their genders. So LGBTQI people are there, and all of those, all of us, actually. So I think the feminist perspective is the most important thing to start with, leaving no one behind. The second thing is that let's make sure to be accountable to those who cannot be here or those who cannot participate in the C20 itself. In often cases, the most marginalized and the most vulnerable people cannot make it to come to the C20 or those international fora to voice their concerns. So we, C20, should really take into account of the voices and concerns of those people. Unless otherwise, C20 will lose its credibility. So the third point is to let's send our passions for equal, democratic, participatory, and fair world. And I think we really hope our voices will be heard by the G20 leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Inaba-san, 1 minute.
Okay. We, as the C20 Japanese team, would like to emphasize that as G20 is the place to discuss about the economic policies, so that the civil society should emphasize the economic justice in the advocacy for the G20, so that we established, for example, labor, business, and human rights working group, and also trade and investment working group, and also the digital economy task group, so that we have been pursuing how to emphasize the aspect of the economic justice in the civil society advocacy. So please see, for example, the recommendation of the digital economy task force in this paper. Usually, for example, NGOs has been emphasizing the importance of the equal opportunity of training, retention of something on the digital economy. But before that, we have to emphasize, and there is many kind of challenges on, for example, rights issues, social concerns, environmental concerns, and also equity issues and governance on these kind of digital economy issues. So that we would like to emphasize the importance of these kind of how we can achieve the global democracy to manage and control this science and technology innovation, and also the digitalization, which has been very much, the government has been pushing on this issue. But we need such kind of strong voices to pursue this kind of democracy, global democracy on STIs and the digitalization. So we have to achieve this issue in this C20. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That's all for today. Again, thank you for coming, and much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.